The humiliation. Before the storm, the alien warships floated above the ruined colony world like predators circling a wounded prey. Their black hulls blocked out the sun, casting shadows that stretched across broken human cities. Towers once filled with life now lay in ruins. Smoke rose in dark spirals, and the silence of destruction was broken only by the sharp laughter of the alien overlords. They called themselves the Xyrath, a proud warrior race that believed they were born to rule. To them, humanity was nothing but fragile creatures who had dared to step into a galaxy they did not belong to. In the center of the destroyed city, a stage was built. Thousands of human survivors were forced to gather before it. Alien soldiers in gleaming armor dragged forward men, women, even children, their faces dirty and their clothes torn. The humans were made to kneel in the dust as the alien commander, a tall figure with silver scales and glowing yellow eyes, stepped forward. His voice boomed through a translator device echoing across the ruins. "Look at them," he declared, pointing at the crowd. "These are the humans. Weak bones, soft skin, short lives. They thought they could rise and challenge the true rulers of the stars. They thought they could resist the Xyrath Empire. And now they are nothing but broken slaves." The alien soldiers laughed and struck the humans with the ends of their rifles. A man fell, coughing blood, but he did not cry out. The commander smirked, pleased by the silence, believing it was fear. He turned to his warriors and raised his arms as if presenting a gift. "This," he shouted, "is the fate of all who resist us. Remember their faces, remember their weakness, for they are a warning to every other race in the galaxy. Humanity will be erased, one colony at a time." The crowd remained still, but among the kneeling figures, eyes burned with quiet fire. Mothers held their children close, soldiers in torn uniforms gritted their teeth, and elders clenched their fists. They were humiliated, yes, but not broken. Beneath their silence was not only grief, it was defiance. And that defiance, hidden in the hearts of the survivors, would one day ignite into something the Xyrath could not imagine. The commander ordered the prisoners to be paraded through the city. Alien banners hung from broken towers, their symbols glowing red against the smoke-stained skies. As the humans were marched through their own streets, the aliens jeered. Some spat on the ground as the humans passed, others pushed them forward with cruel laughter. The survivors' steps were heavy, yet their eyes stared ahead, unblinking, refusing to give their tormentors the pleasure of seeing tears. At the back of the line, a young soldier named Eric stumbled but caught himself before falling. His uniform was torn, his face scarred, yet he kept walking. In his mind, a single phrase repeated like a heartbeat: "This is not the end." Eric had heard rumors before the colony fell, whispers of something called Project Overclock, a desperate experiment hidden far from alien eyes. Nobody knew if it was real, but the thought of it kept him moving. Humanity had not given up yet. When the parade reached the alien command platform, the commander raised his weapon high. A human elder was dragged forward, a man with white hair and sharp eyes that still carried wisdom. The commander pressed the weapon to his chest and looked at the crowd. "Do you see?" he asked mockingly. "Your leaders, your thinkers, your warriors, none of them can save you. Humanity has no power. Humanity has no future." The elder looked up at him, his face pale but his voice calm. "You are wrong," he said. The words were quiet, but every human heard them. Even some aliens leaned closer. "Wrong." The commander sneered. "Your world burns. Your people kneel. What power do you think you have left?" The elder smiled faintly, even as the weapon pressed harder against him. "You see only what is in front of you. You see weakness, yes, but what you do not see is what lies within us. You cannot understand it, but soon you will." The alien commander's smile faded for a moment. His eyes narrowed, and then he struck the elder down with a swift motion. The human crowd gasped, but they did not scream. The elder's words had planted something that would not die with him. The aliens thought they had broken humanity that day. They thought their mockery had proven humans were weak. But as the night fell and the survivors were locked away in makeshift cages, the truth whispered among them. They spoke of the elder's words. They spoke of hidden scientists and secret soldiers. They spoke of a day when humans would not just fight back but rise higher than anyone had ever believed possible. In the distance, the alien commander watched the fires burn across the colony. To him, it was the final proof of victory. But in the shadows of that same night, Arik pressed his hand against the cold ground and swore a silent oath. He would endure. He would fight. And when the time came, he would embrace whatever it took to shatter the limits placed upon humanity. The humiliation was real. The pain was sharp, but the storm was coming. The Zyrath believed they had crushed humanity forever. They had no idea they were standing at the edge of a new age, an age when humans would break free, when humans would burn brighter, when the galaxy would finally see the overclocked truth. The secret of Project Overclock, far away from the broken colony, hidden deep beneath the mountains of Earth, a secret facility pulsed with faint lights. While the galaxy mocked humanity as weak, fragile, and primitive, here in the shadows a desperate hope was being built. It was a hope so dangerous, so untested, that even the leaders of Earth debated whether it should ever be used. They called it Project Overclock, a name whispered like forbidden fire. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense, no giant cannon, no unstoppable fleet. It was something far more terrifying. It was the idea of pushing human beings beyond their natural boundaries, rewriting what the body and mind were capable of, and creating something the galaxy had never seen before. Inside the facility, long corridors stretched with humming machines, glowing wires, and sealed laboratories. Teams of scientists worked day and night, their faces pale from lack of sleep. They carried the weight of extinction on their shoulders. Every report of another fallen colony burned their hearts. Every broadcast of alien humiliation sharpened their determination. Humanity was running out of time. If Project Overclock did not succeed, there would be nothing left but ashes and forgotten names. Dr. Celine Ward, the chief architect of the project, stood before a group of military officers. Her eyes were sharp, her voice steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she activated a display. Holograms appeared, showing human brain scans alongside strange pulses of energy. "We have discovered that the human brain," she began, "runs at only a fraction of its full capacity. Nature built us with safety limits, limits that protect the body from tearing itself apart. But we have found a way to remove those limits, to accelerate reaction speed, muscle power, and cognitive function. The process is dangerous, but it works." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, General Rain, leaned forward. "How dangerous?" he asked. Dr. Ward did not soften the truth. "The subjects risk organ failure, neural collapse, and sometimes death. But those who survive gain abilities no soldier has ever had. Reflexes 10 times faster, strength that can break alloy, a mind that can process the battlefield like a machine. They become something else, something the aliens cannot predict or control." For a long moment the room was silent. Then General Rain spoke again. His voice was heavy, but there was a flicker of hope buried within it. "And how many volunteers?" Dr. Ward turned the display. Dozens of names appeared, men and women from across broken colonies, from Earth, from the fleets still fighting in the shadows. Soldiers who had lost families, who had seen comrades fall, people who had nothing left to lose. "More than we expected," she admitted quietly. "They understand the risks. They do not care. They would rather burn out fighting than live as slaves." The words hung in the air. These were not experiments forced upon prisoners or unwilling subjects. These were choices made by human hearts, choices born out of desperation and defiance. And that was what made Project Overclock different from any alien technology. It was not just science. It was willpower, the stubborn refusal to die quietly. In the lower levels of the facility, the first volunteers prepared themselves. They stood in a chamber filled with pods, each lined with wires, needles, and glowing screens. The soldiers removed their uniforms, their faces hard with determination, but behind their eyes was fear. They had been briefed. They knew some would not walk out alive. Yet not one of them turned back. Among them was Arik, the young soldier who had survived the humiliation of the colony parade. He had been smuggled back to Earth, carrying scars on his body and fury in his heart. When the scientists asked why he volunteered, he gave only one answer: "Because I will never kneel again." Those words spread through the group like fire. They were no longer fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for dignity, for the right to exist without chains. As the pods sealed around them, machines hissed and glowing liquid coursed through their veins. The process began. Heart rates spiked, neurons lit up in frantic storms, muscles strained as if trying to break free from their own skin. Some screamed in agony, some clenched their jaws in silence, but all of them endured. The scientists watched in horror and awe as human bodies pushed beyond their natural limits. One by one, the readings climbed. Reflex timers shattered all previous records. Neural speed surged until thoughts were faster than blinking. Muscles contracted with power that bent steel restraints. And when the pods finally opened, the soldiers stepped out. Not broken, not weak, but changed. Their eyes glowed faintly. Their movements were too precise, too fast, like predators built for war. Eric opened his eyes last. The room fell silent as he moved. The pod's restraints, forged from reinforced alloy, lay in pieces at his feet. He looked at his own hands, flexing them slowly, and whispered, "I feel everything." The scientists froze. For the first time in history, a human being had crossed the invisible line of biology. But even as the soldiers marveled at their new strength, the shadows of risk still hung over them. Some volunteers never rose from their pods. Some lay still, their sacrifice etched into the hearts of the survivors. Yet their deaths did not weaken the project. It strengthened it. The survivors carried their memory forward, a reminder that power always demanded a price. Dr. Ward recorded her thoughts in a final note that day. The galaxy believes humanity is weak. They see soft bodies and fragile minds. But what they do not see is our will. Today, we have proven that will can break limits. Today, humanity has stepped beyond the line of nature. The question is not whether we can survive the aliens. The question is whether the galaxy can survive us. Outside the facility, Earth's skies were calm, but beneath the mountains something dangerous had been born. The world did not yet know it, but the humiliation humanity had endured was about to awaken its most terrifying truth. The ordinary had ended. The overclocked age had begun. First, transformation. The days that followed the first activation of Project Overclock were filled with silence, awe, and a kind of fear, even among the humans themselves. In the hidden underground facility, the survivors of the procedure walked with movements that seemed too sharp, too precise, as if the air itself bent around them. Their breathing was steady, their eyes sharper than before, their very presence carrying an invisible pressure. Scientists who once looked at them with sympathy now studied them with trembling hands. Because they were no longer ordinary men and women, they had become something more, something that the galaxy had never seen in human form. Arik was among those survivors, and though he felt the storm inside his veins, he carried himself with calm determination. He could hear sounds beyond walls, the faint hum of machines from levels above, the heartbeat of soldiers standing beside him. His vision stretched farther, details crisp and clear in ways he had never experienced before. His body responded to thought faster than his mind could measure. He felt stronger, yes, but strength was not what amazed him the most. It was control. He was not only faster, he was precise. Every movement perfectly calculated, as if his body had become a living weapon designed for survival. The military gathered the first unit of overclocked soldiers inside a vast chamber for testing. General Rain stood at the observation deck with the other officers, watching as the transformed humans lined up. Their uniforms were simple, yet something about them radiated authority. They did not need medals, did not need words. Their very existence demanded attention. Dr. Ward stood nearby, her eyes unblinking, filled with both pride and worry. She knew what they had unleashed, and though she believed in the project, she feared what would come if these soldiers were pushed too far. The testing began with simple tasks. Reaction time. strength measurement, combat drills. But what was revealed went far beyond expectation. When a metal sphere was launched at high speed across the room, Arik raised his hand and caught it as if it were nothing more than a falling leaf. When two soldiers were ordered to spar, their movements blurred into speeds the human eye could barely follow, strikes and counters delivered in fractions of a second. When asked to run, they crossed the chamber before observers could even finish blinking. They were fast, precise, unyielding. The observers muttered in disbelief. The aliens had mocked humanity as slow and weak, but these soldiers could move faster than plasma fire, faster than any creature built for war. Yet even more terrifying was the way their minds worked. During a tactical simulation, Arik was given control of a mock battlefield. He analyzed data, predicted movements, and issued orders in seconds that would normally take an entire command team minutes to plan. His strategies were flawless, his awareness almost inhuman. The officers exchanged looks, realizing that these were not just enhanced fighters. They were enhanced commanders, enhanced thinkers. In war, such minds were weapons greater than any fleet. But transformation did not come without cost. At the end of the exercises, one of the soldiers collapsed. His body twitched violently, and though medics rushed forward, his pulse faded. The enhancements had burned his heart from within, pushing too far. The chamber fell into silence as the survivors bowed their heads. They had all known the risks, but watching a comrade fall still cut deeply. Yet even in that grief, not one of them turned away. The fallen soldier's sacrifice only hardened their resolve. They carried his name in their hearts as fuel for the battles to come. That night, when the soldiers rested in their quarters, Arik stood by the observation glass, staring out at the mountains beyond. The world outside seemed the same, but he knew it was not. Something had changed forever. He thought of the elder who had defied the alien commander with his last words. He thought of the humiliation of kneeling in the dust, and he thought of the millions of humans still living under alien chains. His fists clenched, and though his voice was quiet, it carried the weight of a vow. "We will not kneel again. Not ever." What Arik did not know was that elsewhere in the galaxy, the first whispers of humanity's transformation had begun to spread. Alien spies had intercepted fragments of data, strange signals that hinted at experiments far beyond human capability. In secret chambers of the Zerath Empire, commanders argued. Some dismissed the reports as human desperation, nothing more than rumors. But others looked deeper, seeing the possibility of truth, and their faces darkened with unease. If humanity had truly broken its limits, then the mockery of the past would return to them as fear in the future. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the scientists refined the process. They worked night and day, searching for ways to stabilize the transformations, to reduce the deaths, to make the overclock procedure safer for the next wave of volunteers. More soldiers lined up every day, their eyes carrying the same fire, the refusal to die weak, the refusal to vanish from history without leaving a mark. Every new name added to the list was another spark feeding a growing flame. Humanity had found its answer to humiliation. Not surrender, not despair, but defiance in its purest form. And so, the first transformation became more than an experiment. It became a symbol, a message to all who doubted humanity, a message to the galaxy itself. The age of weakness was ending. Humanity had taken its first step into a future where limits no longer bound them. What had begun in secrecy, in pain, and in sacrifice would soon break through the shadows and reveal itself to the stars. And when that day came, the galaxy would learn a truth it had mocked for too long. Humans were never ordinary. They had only been waiting for the moment to prove it. The first battle shock, the alien fleet descended on the planet of Helios like a storm of fire. It was a resource-rich human colony, lightly defended, chosen by the Zerath as their next target because they believed it would be another easy victory. Their warships filled the skies, raining plasma strikes on cities below, shattering defenses before they could even activate. Civilians fled into bunkers as towers collapsed, their screams echoing beneath the thunder of alien engines. To the invaders, it was routine, another step in erasing humanity's stubborn resistance. To the humans watching from hidden command centers, It was the moment they had been waiting for. This was where Project Overclock would be tested in the fire of real war. In the underground command bunker, General Rain stood before a massive display showing the enemy fleet. His face was carved with determination. Behind him stood Dr. Ward, her hands clasped tightly as she tried to steady her fear. And before them, standing in rows of silent readiness, were the first unit of overclocked soldiers. They did not tremble, did not waver, their eyes glowing faintly under the harsh lights. Each of them had accepted what was coming. They knew some of them would not return, but not one had stepped back. Their humiliation had been turned into fuel, their bodies into weapons. "Today," General Rain said, his voice steady but heavy, "the galaxy will see what it means when humanity refuses to kneel. You are not fighting for just this planet. You are fighting for every colony that fell, for every family taken, for every elder mocked and executed. Show the Xyrath what humans become when pushed to the edge." The soldiers saluted, not with words but with silence, for no words were needed. They filed into dropships, their movements sharp, precise, almost unnatural in their speed. As the engines roared and the ships rose through the underground shafts, the civilians hiding in bunkers felt the tremor of hope. For the first time in years, they were not just waiting to die. They were waiting to see humanity strike back. The dropships burst into the skies above Helios, weaving through enemy fire with impossible maneuvers. Plasma bolts streaked toward them, but the pilots, enhanced through partial overclocking, reacted faster than alien computers could track. Ships dodged and spun, slipping between walls of fire as if guided by instinct sharper than machines. The Xyrath commanders watching from orbit frowned. This was not normal. Humans had never flown like this. Then the soldiers dropped. Pods screamed through the atmosphere, striking the battlefield with thunderous impacts. Alien troops, armored and armed with heavy plasma cannons, surrounded the impact zones, ready to laugh at the foolishness of humans daring to fight them on the ground. But when the pods cracked open, silence fell. Arik stepped out first. His movements were too fast, too precise. He raised his rifle, and before the aliens could even blink, 3 of them fell, their weapons cut from their hands, their bodies crashing into the dust. The other overclocked soldiers surged forward, moving like shadows, weaving through plasma fire with speed that broke the rules of combat. One soldier dodged a blast so close it burned his armor, only to reappear at the alien's flank and crush his weapon arm with a single strike. Another leapt across the battlefield, landing with such force that the ground itself cracked beneath him. The aliens panicked. Their commanders shouted orders, but their soldiers faltered. Plasma bolts filled the air, yet the humans were already gone by the time the shots arrived. Their reflexes were no longer bound by natural speed. They moved like lightning given flesh. For the first time in countless campaigns, the Xyrath soldiers felt fear. These were not the weak creatures they had mocked and paraded. These were predators, and they were hunting. From the orbiting flagship, the alien commander snarled as he watched the battle unfold. His troops were being cut down, not by superior numbers, not by superior machines, but by human beings whose every movement defied reason. "Impossible," he hissed. They were broken. They were weak. "What is this?" His words trembled, though he would not admit it. On the ground, Arik fought at the front. He moved through enemy ranks like a storm, his body responding faster than thought. Every strike was precise, every shot placed with deadly accuracy. Around him, the other overclocked soldiers fought with equal ferocity. Yet, beneath their triumph, they felt the weight of sacrifice. 2 of their comrades fell mid-battle, their bodies unable to sustain the overclocked strain. They fought until their hearts gave out, collapsing even as victory spread around them. Their deaths were silent, but their legacy burned in the fury of their brothers and sisters who pressed forward with renewed determination. When the last alien soldier fell on Helios, silence covered the battlefield. Smoke rose from burning wreckage, alien weapons lay shattered in the dust, and among it all, the overclocked humans stood, bloodied, breathing hard, but victorious. The civilians emerged from bunkers, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They had seen defeat after defeat, humiliation after humiliation. But now, before their eyes, they saw something that rewrote their very idea of humanity. These were not fragile beings crawling under alien boots. These were warriors who had broken their limits. General Rain's voice came over the comms, heavy with pride. To the galaxy, this was supposed to be another easy conquest. Instead, it will be remembered as the day humanity revealed its truth. Send the message. Let them all know, we are not finished. We are not weak, and we will never kneel again. The first battle shock spread across the stars faster than any fleet. Alien commanders whispered in council chambers, trying to understand what had happened on Helios. The Zayrath, who had laughed the loudest, now spoke in hushed tones, afraid of what they had awakened. For the first time in history, the galaxy feared humanity not for what it was, but for what it had become. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy takes notice. News of Helios spread faster than any fleet. It crossed trade routes, smuggler channels, and military networks, carried by whispers that refused to die. The story changed with every retelling, but the heart of it remained the same. A human colony had survived. Not by accident, not by mercy. They had fought the Zayrath Empire, the most feared warriors of the quadrant, and they had won. For the first time in living memory, the invincible had been humbled. In the grand chambers of the Zirath High Council, the lords of the Empire gathered in fury and disbelief. Their council hall was a towering cathedral of steel, filled with banners of past victories, each symbol carved into the walls like eternal scars. But now those symbols seemed to mock them. The Supreme Commander stood at the center, his claws tapping against the table as his voice thundered. Explain to me how primitive humans defeated an elite legion. Explain how soldiers trained for centuries were slaughtered by prey animals. His words echoed, but no one dared answer. Finally, one general stepped forward, his voice unsteady. The humans. They were not normal. Reports say they moved faster than plasma fire. They struck with precision beyond machines. Some witnesses claim they blurred through the battlefield as if time itself bent to their will. His words were met with hisses and snarls, but he did not stop. We underestimated them. They have changed. Something has changed. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. The arrogance that once defined the Zayrath cracked beneath the weight of fear. None would admit it openly, but all of them felt it. If humanity had discovered a way to break its limits, then their empire was facing not just resistance, but extinction of their own dominance. Beyond the Zirath, other species heard the whispers too. In the halls of the Oran Dominion, a race of scholars and seers, the news struck like lightning. The Orans had always dismissed humans as reckless dreamers, too fragile to shape the stars. But now their oracles spoke in trembling tones. The tide has shifted, one declared, her crystalline skin shimmering with unease. The humans have touched a power no race should touch. The balance will break. Some argued that humans had become a threat to the entire galaxy. Others argued they had become a beacon. But no one denied that the era of ignoring humanity was over. Meanwhile, among the smaller races, the merchants, wanderers, and refugees who lived in the shadows of great empires, the news spread like wildfire. Stories of human soldiers who moved like lightning, of alien armies broken, of a once weak species rising with fury. For these oppressed peoples, hope bloomed. If humanity could rise, if humans could defy the Zayrath, then maybe they too could dream of freedom. The galaxy that had once mocked humanity now whispered its name with reverence. Back on Earth, the humans themselves felt the shift. The victory at Helios was not only a military triumph, it was a spark that lit fires in the hearts of billions. Colonies long silenced by despair now sent volunteers for Project Overclock. Families who had buried their loved ones now demanded to fight. Factories turned night into day, building weapons, ships, and armor to prepare for the war they knew was coming. The humiliation of kneeling in dust was being replaced by a new memory. The sight of aliens trembling before overclocked humans. Auric and his unit returned to Earth as heroes, though they carried the weight of their fallen brothers on their shoulders. When they stepped into the training chambers once more, Silence filled the room, not because of fear, but because everyone there saw them as living proof. Proof that humans could rise. Proof that they could strike back. Volunteers looked at Arik with awe, not because he was stronger, but because he had walked through fire and returned. He spoke no grand speeches, but when he said only 3 words, every heart caught fire. We are ready. But victory carried shadows as well. Dr. Ward sat in her office late at night reviewing data from the battle. The readings of the overclocked soldiers were both inspiring and terrifying. Their bodies had endured beyond expectation, but the stress on their hearts, their nervous systems, their very cells, was immense. 2 soldiers had burned out completely, their bodies consumed by the strain. She knew more would follow if the procedure was not refined. She whispered to herself, "At this pace, we may win the war, but lose ourselves in the process." It was the price of survival, and humanity had chosen to pay it. Across the galaxy, the reactions hardened. Some alien races began forming alliances, whispering of stopping humanity before it grew too strong. Others debated whether to seek peace before humanity unleashed its fury upon them. Old enemies of the Zerath, once crushed under their iron rule, now watched with hungry eyes. If humans could bleed the Empire, then the galaxy itself might change forever. And so the whispers became a storm. Humanity, once the weakest of all, had become the most unpredictable. No longer dismissed, no longer mocked, they stood on the edge of something far greater. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. Would they become saviors who broke chains, or monsters who burned everything in their path? For now, one truth was undeniable. The galaxy had taken notice. Humanity had broken its limits, and the stars would never look at them the same way again. The price of power victory brought cheers across Earth and its scattered colonies, but within the hidden halls of Project Overclock the air was heavy with silence. The soldiers who had returned from Helios were alive, but their bodies carried scars invisible to the eye. To the civilians, they looked unstoppable. Giants wrapped in human skin, faster, stronger, sharper than anything the galaxy had ever seen. But when the battles ended and the weapons were laid down, the price of their transformation began to show. Arik woke one night in his quarters, his chest burning as if fire raged inside him. He gasped for air, his heart pounding so violently it felt ready to tear apart. He stumbled to the medical bay where Dr. Ward and her team were already waiting. They had seen this before. Electrodes were attached, scanners lit up, and numbers screamed warnings across the screens. His heart was beating at double the rate of a normal man's, his neural pathways flashing with energy as if lightning itself ran through his brain. Yet he was not in battle, not under strain. His own body was at war with itself. "You're pushing too far," Dr. Ward said softly, her voice trembling despite her effort to remain calm. "Every time you enter overclock mode, your cells burn faster than they can heal. Your body wasn't designed for this." She looked at him with eyes heavy from sleepless nights. "None of your bodies were." Arik did not answer. He sat in silence, his breathing slowing as the machine stabilized him. In his heart, he already knew the truth. They had become weapons at a cost. Some would not live long enough to see the end of the war they were fighting. But he also knew something else. They had no choice. To surrender was death anyway, only slower, only more humiliating. At least this way, every heartbeat carried meaning. Across the facility, more soldiers began to show the strain. Some collapsed after training, their muscles refusing to respond. Others experienced bursts of rage or confusion, their overclocked minds struggling to balance the flood of speed and perception. Medics worked tirelessly, but the truth remained brutal. The stronger they became, the shorter their lives would be. The project was not making immortal warriors. It was creating blazing meteors, burning bright and fast, destined to fall before their time. The generals saw it too. In secret meetings, debates raged. Some argued they should halt the program before it consumed their own people. Others said it was too late to turn back. General Rain's voice silenced them all when he spoke with the calmness of a man who had already accepted his fate. "We are not fighting for tomorrow's comfort. We are fighting to exist at all. If we must burn, We will burn the galaxy bright enough that no one forgets we were here." His words became a creed, spreading among the soldiers like fire. Despite the risks, more volunteers came. They had seen the humiliation of their kind. They had buried their families under alien ruins. They had nothing left to lose. Mothers who had lost children, young men who had seen their worlds fall, even elders who refused to die powerless, each of them lined up for the chance to carry the fire, even if it killed them. To them, the price was not a curse but a choice. Better to die standing than to live kneeling. Arik visited the families of the fallen soldiers who had burned out during the Battle of Helios. He carried their tags, their last words, their memories. Some families wept, others held his hand and told him to keep fighting, but all of them understood. Their loved ones had not died in vain. Their deaths had built the foundation for a new humanity, one that refused to bow. Arik left each family with the same promise: they will be remembered when we stand free. Dr. Ward, however, struggled in silence. Each death weighed on her like a personal failure. She had given humanity a weapon, yes, but she feared she had also cursed them. She recorded her thoughts in secret logs, words she never dared to say aloud. "We are winning battles, but at what cost? If every soldier dies before the war ends, will victory mean anything? Am I saving my people or destroying them faster?" Yet, even in her doubts, she could not bring herself to stop. The sight of colonies burning, of children in chains, of alien laughter still haunted her. Better a curse with hope than extinction without a fight. And so, humanity pressed forward. Every battle fought with overclocked soldiers carried victory, but also funerals. Every triumph brought cheers from civilians and tears from families. Yet the more they burned, the stronger their legend became. Other races whispered that humans were mad, willing to sacrifice themselves in ways no one else dared. To the empires that had once mocked them, this madness was terrifying. How do you fight an enemy who does not fear death, who is willing to tear themselves apart just to strike you down? Arik stood with his unit one evening, watching the sunset from the facility's balcony. The sky burned orange, fading into deep red, as if reflecting the fire in their veins. Some soldiers laughed quietly, others stood in silence, but all of them understood what they were. They were not immortals, not saviors blessed with endless power. They were torches, burning for as long as they could, lighting the path for others to follow. And in that truth, there was no despair, only resolve. Humanity had accepted the price of power, and now they carried it willingly. The galaxy had taken notice of their rise, but soon it would learn something far greater. The strength of humanity was not in living forever. It was in fighting until the very last breath, even when the body broke, even when the heart failed. The Zyrath had unleashed something they could never control. The price was high. But for humanity, it was worth every drop of blood, every broken body, every heartbeat burned too fast. Because through that sacrifice, they had found a spirit no empire could crush. The revelation and legacy. The war reached its peak when the Zyrath gathered their greatest fleet, a force so vast it blotted out the stars above the contested world of Mirrodin. It was a final display of dominance, meant to crush the human rebellion once and for all. Hundreds of warships hovered in orbit, their cannons glowing with power, their commanders certain that no force in existence could withstand them. To the galaxy watching from afar, it seemed inevitable. Humanity would be erased beneath overwhelming fire. But humanity did not arrive with a fleet to match. Their ships were fewer, their weapons smaller, their resources stretched thin. What they brought instead were their overclocked warriors, the embodiment of desperation turned into fire. Pods streaked from the sky like falling stars, crashing into the heart of the battlefield where alien troops waited in smug anticipation. For the Zyrath, it was a familiar scene. For humanity, it was the moment the galaxy would never forget. When the pods opened, silence rippled across the battlefield. The soldiers who stepped out were not ordinary humans, not even the same overclocked warriors seen before. Months of refinement, endless sacrifice, and the deaths of countless volunteers had pushed Project Overclock further than ever imagined. These soldiers moved with terrifying grace, their eyes burning with a light that no alien could comprehend. They were humanity's last gift to itself, born not of conquest, but of survival. And they carried with them the weight of every fallen comrade, every destroyed world, every humiliation endured. The battle began with fire. Alien cannons unleashed plasma storms, turning the fields into oceans of burning light. Yet the humans cut through it, faster than sight, dodging, striking, weaving between death as if the laws of war no longer applied to them. They tore through alien ranks with precision and fury, each movement a blur of strength and speed. The Xyrath soldiers tried to rally, but their discipline shattered as they faced an enemy that fought like ghosts made of lightning. Fear spread faster than orders, and within moments the proud warriors who once mocked humanity screamed in panic. Above the battlefield, Eric led the charge. His body burned with strain, his veins alight with energy, every heartbeat a reminder that he was walking the edge of death. Yet his eyes held no fear. He fought not for himself, but for the millions who could not. Every strike he delivered carried the memory of the elders' last words, the faces of families who had suffered, the voices of comrades who had fallen. He knew he would not live long after this battle. None of them would. But in that knowledge there was power. He had already accepted death, and so nothing could stop him. The Xyrath flagship descended into the atmosphere, its cannons blazing, determined to crush the human warriors. But Eric and his unit leapt into the sky, propelled by strength no longer bound by human limits. They landed on the massive warship as though it were nothing more than a battlefield floor. Plasma turrets spun, firing desperately, but the overclocked soldiers tore through them with blades, rifles, and their own bare hands. For the first time, the Xyrath watched their greatest weapon fall not to another empire, not to technology, but to the fury of humans who refused to kneel. When the flagship collapsed in flames, the galaxy itself seemed to shudder. The sight was broadcast across networks, carried to every corner of space where eyes were watching. Billions saw it, humans, aliens, rulers, rebels. They saw fragile creatures turned into firebrands, burning out their lives in defiance, and they understood something deeper than war. This was not just victory. It was revelation, but with revelation came sacrifice. One by one, the overclocked soldiers began to falter. Their hearts gave out, their bodies too strained to hold the power any longer. They collapsed where they stood, still clutching their weapons, their faces calm as if they had chosen this ending. Arik fell last, standing atop the broken remains of the alien flagship, his body trembling, his vision fading into darkness. His last words, carried across the comms, were simple. "We were ordinary once. Never again." And then silence. When the smoke cleared, humanity stood victorious. The Xyrath Empire, broken and humiliated, withdrew in terror. No council, no ruler, no fleet dared challenge the humans again. The galaxy had seen what they were willing to become, what price they were willing to pay, and that truth terrified even the most powerful empires. Humanity had broken its limits, and in doing so, they had shattered the illusion of weakness that had defined them for centuries. On Earth, the names of the fallen were carved into monuments that stretched high into the sky. Families gathered to remember them, to speak their stories, to ensure no sacrifice was forgotten. And across the stars, whispers of humanity spread. To the oppressed, they were heroes. To the rulers, they were a warning. To history, they were the spark that proved no chains. No humiliation, no enemy could silence the human spirit. The legacy of the overclocked soldiers was not just in their victories, but in what they revealed, that humanity's true power was never in weapons or technology, but in the will to endure, to sacrifice, to rise even when crushed. They had shown the galaxy a truth that could not be unlearned. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not prey. Humans were the fire that would outlast the stars. And so the story of the overclocked warriors lived on, carried from world to world, passed in whispers and in shouts. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. For in the ashes of humiliation, in the fire of sacrifice, the truth had been revealed. When humanity broke its limits, it became unstoppable.